Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the on.agentops podcast. It will center around how to make agentic AI really work, deploy agents, monitor and observe agents, secure agents. It will be about agentic frameworks, RAG pipelines, costs, ROI, technical hurdles, how to get from a POC to some real working multi-agent setup, and a lot of other questions surrounding agentic ops. We will have guests from different areas of the industry, be it from specific vendors, startups, or large corporations, be it consultants or analysts, or some just other interesting people who are working in the area and moving things forward. Our episodes will usually last around 20 to 40 minutes, so to make it crisp and really informative for all listeners. And now I want to wish you very much fun and hopefully an interesting listen with our first episode. So thanks for joining us to the on.agentops podcast. It's the first episode, so please mind that maybe not everything is just perfect yet. But I would like to introduce, without much further ado, our first guest, Sohaib, who has quite some experience in deploying and making AI agents work. So maybe Sohaib, feel free to introduce yourself. What have you done so far? And maybe how was your journey into AI agents? And how did it all come for you to be?
Absolutely, sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. So let me start with the introduction. I started my journey in around 2015. I was doing my graduate at that time. In 2013, Google just launched their first deep neural network, which is the VGGNet. And my professor, they just forced me to do our research onto the AI and the deep neural networks. At that time, I just deep dive into the AI. So in 2015, without the GPT, without anything, I just go onto the internet, research all of the things up, and then started my journey as an AI engineer. And my first experience was with one of the local firm and over here in Pakistan, which is a programmer force. We automated the KYC process over there using their computer vision and image processing, and we built the architectures ourselves, train, fine-tune, deployments, all the process at the same time. We have gone through it. And it's now around 7, 8 years I've been working into the AI. And nowadays I really focus on to the AI agentic solutions where AI agent is capable of calling the other person, have the conversation with other person, or do some of the tasks. So this is about my journey, how I get into the AI and how I started and what I am working on currently.
Yes, thanks a lot. So before all the hype started, as you mentioned, what was the difficult part for you to kind of work on machine learning in the first place?
In the first place, the most difficult part for me to understand the maths behind it. If you talk about the local machine learning algorithms like the decision trees or random forest, we need to understand that stuff up because that models need some specific kind of data. To prepare that data, we need to understand that algorithms, that on which data this algorithm will work perfect. So after understanding all of these stuff up, the mathematics behind the algorithms, we are able to then select the best algorithm for it. So for me, at the starting part is to understand the mathematics behind the algorithms of machine learning.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So when we currently look at the transformer-based large language models, those are kind of one solution fits all. And I wonder sometimes if there may not be like some recurrent neural nets or convolutional neural nets we had in the past or some other models, which might for some use cases be more efficient or more suitable. But currently it seems like we are moving in a direction that we try to do everything with a transformer-based language model. What is your take on that? Does that make sense, or is there a potential alternative to that scenario?
So if there is some problem which very generic, for example, I have all of the data about any of the company. If we talk about the financial things, if I have the financial sheets, balance sheets, cash flow sheets of any of the companies, I just give it to the transformers and then do some analysis on it. That is a pretty easy thing for the transformers. But if we need to predict the next data point, if that stock gonna hike or drop, for that particular part, transformers, I don't think transformer is the best part. We should go to the machine learning models to understand all of the data, then give it the patterns, and machine learning model tell us that because of these scenarios, because of these data points, that might be the perfect point, the prediction point. LLM hallucinates so much, but if we talk about the specific problems or solve the specific solutions where the margin of error is very low, we should go for the machine learning models.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So coming, especially now when you, for instance, mention hallucination, and now because the podcast is and will be about how to make agentic AI work, did you come across a solution how to detect when, for instance, when you have multiple agents set up, that some start to hallucinate and you can kind of interrupt or monitor that process?
So hallucination is a very large topic. So if we take artificial intelligence as a human intelligence, there are narratives. If I have some point, maybe XYZ, you can have conflict with that point. I say that the AirPods, Apple AirPods are good enough. And your perspective, Apple AirPods are not good. So now transformers have all kind of data, all users data. So this is not the hallucination. Hallucination is something like if there is something in the quotation, if Einstein says E is equal to mc square and AI says E is equal to mc, that's a hallucination. So that is the best part to detect. Now AI is doing the hallucination. But if there is the open-ended questions where everyone have their own points, in that area, I don't consider that a hallucination.
Yeah, it's potentially challenging, especially in this customer service scenarios where you have a database, for instance, like retrieval augmented generation, a RAG pipeline to get some data, but sometimes just the data is not in there, yeah, and the agent might nevertheless come up with some answer which the agent thinks, in air quotes, is the right answer. So how do you detect that if you deploy agents?
In most of the scenarios, now transformers, if you take the GPT or Gemini or all of the other LLMs, they're smart enough. Actually, when we add the RAG system on the top of the LLM, they can, if they have the information, they just split it out to the customers. But if they have not, we just need to write some of the prompts that if you don't have any information, don't regenerate it, don't hallucinate it, just say I don't know. So with the help of RAG system and some good prompting, we can reduce all of the hallucinations part.
Yeah, with the pre-prompting, which is becoming more and more important. Yeah, I've heard some people, they have like several thousand words of pre-prompts going into an AI agent before you call it, because you want to govern the model in a certain behavior. What is your take on it? Does it make more sense to invest heavily into the prompting or pre-prompting or system prompting or however you want to call it, or OpenAI calls it now developer mode, or to go for fine-tuning and say, okay, let's try to take a custom data set and just fine-tune it more in order to get some targeted behavior?
Right. So that is another interesting point. So I believe what I mostly do is I handle the generic part with the prompting and the pre-prompting things. But in some cases, if I need to change the personality of the AI, so nowadays LLMs, they are trained on to the generic things. But if you go inside, if you want to make an AI which is heavily behaves like a doctor, now doctor have a lot of slugs into their languages. Now I need to change the personality of the AI. And that perspective, I usually recommend to fine tune or train the LLM. all of the other parts where we don't need to change the personality, where we don't need to change the language of the model, and that part that can be handled with the help of prompting and the RAG systems.
Yeah, I think that is totally on the point. So shifting focus a little bit to really deploying AI agents. So what are your tips, especially when you maybe do a small POC in a kind of Google Colab fashion and just try something out and you say, okay, yeah, kind of works. I call an API or NCP and plug it together. And then now it's nice. But when you want to move your company or your project in an actual operational environment where you have multiple instances of agents or maybe multiple agents also talking to each other, what are the things you think everyone should look out for, or maybe what you have come across as learnings?
So while deploying the I usually use the serverless architectures, and I don't use the APIs for the LLMs or for the AIs. I just deploy it and make a sockets, the real-time streaming onto the AI so that we can get the word by word thing and the response will be a little faster. But onto the other hand side, if I deploy it through the APIs, it take around 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds. And the other times, if I deploy it with the help of sockets, using the Redis, Kafka, Django channels, any of this socketing, I can get the first word out within the milliseconds. So I really use the serverless and do with the help of socketing, deploy with the help of socketing.
Mm, yeah, makes sense. And how do you do it when with, for instance, message queuing, or especially when you have like a heavy load scenario and the WebSocket might get sluggish, or do you build a queuing system on top? Like for instance, when you say with Redis, or how do you handle that?
Absolutely. So there's a queuing system. I mostly use the Redis for that. So AI don't push it to the front end or the handler directly. It push the things into the Redis. And we can make as many queues as we want into the Redis systems, depending on onto the logics. So whenever something is pushed inside the queue, Redis will handle the push out scenes. So it will be so good if we can make the Redis systems and then connect the AI with the Redis, and if we have good queuing system, there is no blockage if even if we get the million users over it.
So you didn't see any like missed events in such scenarios, or where you're like agent message being dropped. So that's kind of a modular good setup for you found.
Yeah. When I firstly set up the AI, when I deploy using the APIs, there's a lot of data loss and that process. But when I shifted to the WebSocketing using the queues system, then after that I didn't lose any data from the LLM side.
No, perfect. That's, I think, a very important tip, very important recommendation for users, because I think like just doing it via API is maybe the first easy hack, but with WebSocket and streaming, you're making it just more robust and introducing a Redis for queuing. And when it comes to monitoring, any specific recommendations you would have, or do you just use CloudWatch on AWS or some other built-in solution, or do you think there are special frameworks you would like to highlight which make it easy to monitor multiple agent setup?
For the system level, for the software level, I really use the Datadogs or the even AWS CloudWatch. Other than that, if we talk about the agentic system, so I really build the agents onto the LangGraph, and there is one best monitoring system, which is the LangSmith, where we can log everything, where we can see actually every event onto it. LangSmith is the best part of to log and monitor the LangChain or the AI agentic part.
Have you looked into other tools like Traceloop or AgentOps itself?
I have looked into the Traceloop, but I like LangSmith more because of more familiarity. I was using the LangChain, the LangGraph, and their tools for a very long time. So that's why.
Yeah, okay. And for users who want to get started with it, with AI agent observability, What are maybe some metrics you think are important? What should users look out for? So you have the one hand kind of the log structure, so just logging every message and what is going on. But maybe on a calculated or on a higher level, how would you see which KPIs or metrics are important in that regard?
So I actually see if the amount of tokens are not hiking up because of anything. That is the main part. Other than if the AI is because if when we do the AI agentic system, there are several agents attached to one architecture because there's a master, there is a slave, then there are some other slaves who are doing the stuff up. So I really see LangSmith help us to drill down into every of the agent to see the response, how they cumulate their response, all of the things up. So I usually go for the step-by-step logging and see if there is any error coming up, how much cost as far per agent over there, how much cost is for all of the architecture, how many tokens are they utilizing, what are the usage, all of these stuff. I really take care of these stuff.
Yes, that's very important. And any ideas or tips, for instance, how to detect when AI agents go stale so that they kind of stop to generate content or just gibberish, or they start to reproduce in a loop so that they give to the master something back, which the master again then starts to request kind of the same information, and then the master slave start in the loop conversation or something like that?
So to take care of this, we have the retries loop or the loop counter over there. So I usually use around 5 loop counters. If the loop goes greater than 5, I block that up and cumulate the stuff up and then ask user if that there is something wrong, then you can restart the things up. We can adjust that according to the need. You can go to 15, 20, 10, 5. I usually use 5.
Yes. And how often do you observe such behavior? Is it like in the below 1% threshold, or how often does it occur?
And in most of the cases where the task is so complex, if we are building an AI agent which solves the financial problems or the financial situations, most probably more than 70% it will go above 5. But if there are some easy tasks like the block generation or any other thing, there is more chances, 90% chances that it will solve below 5 looping steps.
So it sounds a little bit like that those systems, at least in the current setup, are more tuned to kind of chop down the problems as good as possible to have kind of simple agents or simply prompted agents to solve tasks quickly and decisively, rather than like build, yeah, like general prompting structure, which then kind of would go in this loop and also have the danger to, how to put it, to kind of get mixed up with itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. So sometimes there are many of the problems where we are also not sure that how many agents we have to make. So there's a thin line between breaking down the task and give 2 or 3 tasks to one of the agents. So there is a whole research behind that.
Yes. And in what form, and if so, in what form do you constrain the agents? Meaning, for instance, enforcing like a JSON strict mode that you say, okay, I only want for some agents to give out whatever, a JSON array also? Or did you kind of not see any benefit in doing so, but rather say, okay, the agents are currently so good by now, after 2, 3, 4 years, where we saw really the giant language models being deployed, that we do not need to restrict the agent in its answering behavior. Just, for instance, give it like here, choose from the 5 selected or 5 possible options and just let it run and it will figure everything out.
In my case, I usually restrict the response format of the LLMs because of the strict practices, security, or all of the other logging things onto the backend or the front end side. Because if anything's changed, that may break our backend or the front end part. For example, if I pass the JSON but I miss the last curly bracket, it just break down all of the stuff up and throws an error. So in that part, I usually use PyDentix to restrict the response of the LLMs.
Ah, yeah. So you with Pydantic, you're still sticking to that because you think that library is still helpful.
Yes.
Okay. Wow, wonderful. And yeah, to round things look a little bit into security and agent security. So we all saw about prompt ingestion, prompt hacking, and so on. What is your take? So maybe on the one hand, the really core securing the agents. So from just going rogue and googling something and doing it whatever, and on the other hand, the more alignment security, the other part of the research to say, okay, we don't maybe want the agent to say some offensive or some inappropriate stuff. So how do you go about those areas?
Right. So I usually do the guardrails. How I identify that is there's a whole list of the things which we need to, in some cases, we need to restrict. For example, the offensive language, abusing, a lot of other stuff. There is a classify agent which classifies that what is the user prompt if that have some of the restricted behaviors, then it if there is, then we will just smash the answer that we are not able to answer this question. You might need to rechange that, but there's a classifier who classify all of things up. If everything goes good, we pass it to the main architecture to answer that stuff up.
Yeah. So kind of eating your own dog food. So you use the agents themselves to kind of classify and respond appropriately.
Yes, so one part is the agent itself, the classifier agent. The other part is that LangChain just launched their guardrails package. So nowadays I am usually using the guardrails part.
Okay. And how do you prevent something like prompt injection or even detect it? Do you have also some agent running on top of it to detect that, for instance, some user is, I don't know, putting JSON in the prompt or some code, JavaScript?
Currently, there are some of the generic injection prompts, which is handled by the LangChain dot guardrails. I am currently using that one, not implementing my own things, but using the already ready-made things to handle these injections.
All right. I think we covered a lot of ground, from securing to monitoring to deploying. Maybe to round things off and to zoom a little bit out, where do you think is the area of agentic AI and especially like this making it work on an operational level heading in the near future, like in the next 1 to 2 years?
So I believe we are on to the surface of the agentic era. It's gonna be so big. Everything which is repetitive means if every repetitive task can be hand over to the AI, like taking interview of the 10 candidates for the same questions. AI can do that, but only the creative things, the thinking, the thought process, that will be done by humans, and human only need to instruct the AI that I need to make a cup of tea, I need to make a cup of coffee, I need a hamburger. AI will be doing that kind of repetitive tasks. So currently we are onto the surface, but there's a lot behind it.
Absolutely. And what do you think of the frameworks which have grown over the last years, like LangChain, and their perspective? Might there be a future, maybe also not so far not so in the far distant future, that the general agents from the large providers just become so good that we do not need to build this multi-agent architecture where one master agent talks to a slave and offloads some activity or work to a slave agent, but where just like a general agent is totally fine to classify the image, to, I don't know, make a route planning and then suggest travel tips and book the flight or whatever.
Yeah. So I believe the big companies, the OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, all of these are in race to make an AI which can do all of the stuff up. And I believe in next 1 year or 2 years, we can have that kind of AI, that one AI who can do everything. So LangChain or LangGraph, QAI, all of these frameworks are growing so rapidly, having a lot of things into it. Only some specific engineers who want to do some innovation will be using these kind of stuff, but all of the other market, 99% of people non-tech people or even technical, they are using the OpenAIs or Google's or the big companies' AI to do all of their tasks.
In the end, I think it becomes more like a business case. So probably because the big vendors will, at least in the beginning, make it attractive, but they will eventually want to see the revenue and the ROI based on that. So maybe a case would be for individual companies to say, okay, I go into my own agentic AI toolchain and pipeline just because it might be a little bit cheaper. But as you say, like for 99% or 95% of use cases, even for technical users, might be easier to just call one of the big models and having it do the thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, well, we are going close to the 30-minute mark, so I would like to close it off. And maybe on a little bit lighter note, you mentioned you are doing martial arts. So how do you do it? Which one do you do it? Is it to blow some steam or to get your head free? So tell me a little bit about the martial arts you're doing.
Right. So I just joined it 1 month back to learn some of the techniques. So yeah, I really wanted to learn that the MMA since when I was 15 years old. I just started 1 month back and it's pretty enjoying over there.
Okay, and what do you enjoy most about it?
The training, the punches and the kicks and kicking the trainer.
Yeah, it's something totally different than just kicking or hitting the keyboard all day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so it was a blast talking to you. Thanks a lot for all your insights. Anything final words you want to give to our listeners?
Yeah, everything Asghar, I really enjoyed the conversation with you. In case if any of your followers or listeners need anything, do ping me out. I will try to answer all of your questions. And thank you, George, for having me up.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, and that brings me to my final point. What's your handle? How do people best reach you? Are you on LinkedIn, X, Twitter, or can people get to you?
You can reach me out onto the LinkedIn or Instagram. My LinkedIn is Sohaib, Sohaib, Sohaib Anwar. And my Instagram is Sohaib_ANWAR.
Oh, wonderful. We will also definitely put everything in the show notes so that people can find you more easily. But yeah, thanks a lot, Sohaib, and see you in the next one.
Thank you so much, George.